Welcome, Peter Doig. Peter was the very first president of the New South Wales chapter of National Speakers, and that was back in '86, is that right?
That sounds an awfully long time ago.
It does indeed.
So what was happening, around the time when you were all setting up?
Well, I recall I went to a meeting which Doug Maloof had organised, and as I recall it was at the old Wentworth Hotel. And anyway, I wound up being voted in as the initial president. And it was a time of formation. The committee I had, I can't remember them all now, but we all worked hard trying to get ideas of getting people together to recognise what National Speakers was all about.
Was it a long time in coming?
Well, it was. I went to an initial meeting many months before, and then nothing happened, and then next thing this meeting at the old Wentworth Hotel, which is now some other name, of course. That's how many years ago it was, of course.
Well, yes, it's sort of 19
but then we started. Once we had our committee, then we figured we had to get some runs on the board and some notoriety, shall we say.
So what were some of the highlights?
There were a number of highlights. One in particular was Walter Dickman. We made him the first life member, I think it was, and we had a very large black tie function at the Hilton Hotel.
Wonderful. Well, he really is the grandfather.
Yes, very much so. And everyone who's ever come in contact with Walter will remember that his wonderful sayings and the effort he put in. And we had this wonderful, Ron Tackey was the MC. Right. And my wife and I brought Walter in from his home in a stretched limousine, Walter and his wife. And I remember having a photograph of Walter and his wife, and his son came as well. His son and his wife came, and we had a picture of Walter, very pristine at the start of the evening.
Oh, actually, we went out to interview him a couple of weeks ago, and he remembers that so well and had the photos. It was a real highlight. It
was a tremendous night, but I've got to say, the photo of Walter going home in the limousine, it was he wasn't quite as pristine because he'd obviously enjoyed himself.
We won't go there.
If there was a low point in your presidency, Peter, what would that be?
I can't recall any things as low points. There were probably some functions we ran which we didn't get the attendance that we were hoping for. However, we tried to learn from those things, and but there were no low points as such that I can recall.
Excellent, that's lovely. And how did you, Peter, get involved in the business and to develop your topic?
The main thrust of my business for many years back in those days, and even still today, is in the headhunting business. But a way that I helped orchestrate my profile was that I sought out initially opportunities to speak at Rotary clubs, the good old Rotary speaking circuit. And I put together a presentation which was because in Rotary you can't overtly sell anything.
Yeah,
but I put together a presentation which was, as I recall, titled Resume Language, what your resume says about you without you saying anything.
That's a good title.
And it went very well. And then out of that, Rotarians said to me, gee whiz, that was interesting. Do you ever speak at conferences and company events and company functions? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
Then, of course, they said, how much? And I thought, ooh. But it's gone well since then. And so even now, I still say the main thrust of my business is essentially the headhunting. But in the last couple of years, I've been asked to speak at an amazing array of functions and events all around Australia and offshore.
What do you wish you'd known back then that you now know?
I think it's something I learned from Ron Tackey, which is have the same presentation but a different audience. And I used to tailor I change almost every presentation I ever did, and forget that the audience was different. And so now, and in fact, I did it for Rotary back in those days. It was a different audience with Rotary, and I think I spoke at 50 Rotary clubs in a year.
Would you recommend that is a good way to start? Just getting yourself out there?
Absolutely, just get out there. People often want to be paid before they've done the apprenticeship, and just put the hard yards in, and do the apprenticeship, and then the rewards will come. But the Rotary speaking circuit, those types of things, there's always an opportunity, but when you get asked to go and speak, they have so many ordinary speakers, make sure you knock their socks off.
Yeah, excellent. That's such good advice too. What are your thoughts, Peter, on producing product? Products
are a great incremental sale opportunity, and Alan Peace, who was very, very helpful in those early days with many workshops he ran for us in that first year on teaching people how to get into the speaking business and refine and hone their skills. But I remember Alan once saying to me, "Gee whiz, it's great to go on holidays and come back and find your mailbox stuffed full of cheques."
Oh, nice.
So products are just a longer lasting, because the presentation, the speech that you present will have an impact, but if there's something they can take away which is tangible, it has an amazing effect.
Peter, what is that one must that you would suggest that professional speakers do to be even more successful?
Never take anything for granted. Sort of assume the worst and expect anything.
Which one to elaborate?
Practice and prepare. Years ago, I ran, when I worked for 3M Company, we had a divisional conference, and we had Ron Barassi, who was then the superstar football coach of Melbourne. He came up and he spoke at a 3M conference, and because I was involved in rugby league coaching in those days, I invited Jack Gibson and Terry Fernley, the two superstar coaches of rugby league, along. And Jack said something to Ron. He said, Jack Gibson said to Ron Barassi, "It's my 5P philosophy." And Ron said, "What's that?" And Jack said, "Perfect practice prevents piss poor performance." And Ron said, "Hang on, Jack, that's 6Ps, not 5Ps. And Jack,
very good advice, though, isn't it?
Yes, and Jack then said, "Well, I haven't gone to the maths of it, Ron, but it always works."
Oh, that's good. It's good.
So prepare and practice so it comes off as second nature.
That's good. Would you have perhaps one last tip for speakers over and above the ones you've just given? One top tip.
Be consistent, professional in your presentation. If you're going to send out a letter, near enough is never good enough. If you're going to sign an order with a pen or write in a book, make sure the pen is not a crappy bic. You're speaking about success. Make sure that everything you do then mirrors around that as well.
Wonderful.
And that's where I see some people let themselves down. Their shoes aren't polished, or their tie's got a mark on it, or whatever it might be. Just make sure you're absolutely consistent and thoroughly professional, and that you live up to everything that you're speaking about people should be doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter Doig, the New South Wales chapter president of 1986.